So here we are once again. It's like I saw you last week, Craig. Championship Rugby League with Craig Lingard. Good evening to you, Craig. How are you? Well?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Very good indeed. Loads to get through in this edition of Championship Rugby League. Let's start at Whitehaven. Brilliant win, 20 points against the team you'll be playing next week, Rochdale. Anthony Murray resigning at full time. I mean, wow.
Not a bad way to bow out, is it? Go out with a victory. But yeah, I don't think anybody saw that one coming. I think it was a shock looking at the social media stuff coming from Whitehaven. I think it was shocked as well. But reading the statement that Muzz has put out, it's obviously impacting on his own life and his work life, and the additional travel, the additional commitments to the combined championship this year. It sounds like they're training an extra day than they were last year in League One. So that extra commitment, travelling all the way from Lancashire up to Cumbria, is having a bit of an impact on him. But instead of reading the statement, it sounds like he still wants to stay involved in the game, but a little bit closer to home. So hopefully can get a gig closer to home, because his the value that he's shown at every club that he's been at is massive. So hopefully can get something sorted out.
It's a rarity, isn't it? A coach leaving a club on their own terms.
Yeah, isn't it? It is nowadays, yeah. Yeah, it's a strange one, is that? But yeah, like really pleased for Muzz that they got that victory. I think they've had a bit of a tough start to the season, certainly the last sort of 2 or 3 games that they've played. So they'll take massive confidence from that one up there at Whitehaven.
Absolutely, and as you say, great way to bow out. 20 points to 0 over Rochdale. I'm led to believe yet again it was good quality Cumbrian conditions, but great defence is cited from Whitehaven. It wasn't that Rochdale weren't at the races too much. It was a case of some real solid D from Whitehaven, as well as, of course, as some very well taken tries.
Yeah, I've watched that game obviously in prep for us this week against Rochdale, and the first sort of 15 minutes or so, Rochdale were camped in the Whitehaven 20-metre area. Whitehaven had quite a few errors, early tackle counts coming out of their own 20-30 metre areas, and Rochdale had a lot of pressure up there and just didn't manage to get any early scores. And I think that buoyed the Whitehaven team. But you mentioned the Cumbrian conditions. It's I think for me this brings up a bit of a bigger issue rugby league wide. I think where Whitehaven are with their field at the minute, it's in atrocious condition. It really is, and I guess it's through no fault of their own, because of the times that we start in the rugby league season as early as we are. We're a summer sport, or we market ourselves as a summer sport, but we train pre-season throughout the winter. The early games the friendly games are in December, early January. We start the season now in January, at the worst period in the year where the weather is. And when you've got a grass pitch, as soon as you're on that pitch in week 1 of the season, early January, if the weather's bad, you've got that pitch for a number of months. Whitehaven is still struggling with that. And again, outside of Super League, how many clubs employ a specialist groundsman to deal with the issues that they've got? Financially, we know the situation the game's in with teams outside Super League. So a lot of clubs won't be able to spend money on a specialised groundsman who can maybe do a little bit of a better job in returning the pitch to some sort of normality sooner than what a volunteer can. So I would imagine that the majority of teams outside of Super League, they've just got volunteers that are marking the pitch, cutting the pitch, trying to get it back to some sort of normality with reseeding it and growing it. But these are things that we need to look at. I think in rugby league is a wider issue. That do we need to, if we are trying to market ourselves as a summer game, and is the season going to start earlier next year? I heard rumours they're trying to get the season to start around about Boxing Day as a league fixture. I don't know if that's possible or not, but it's certainly something we need to look at with the conditions early in the year that we always get that can impact certainly on the way a team might want to play.
And of course, at the moment, especially in Super League, I'm sure it's the same in the Championship as well, albeit obviously they're not as well reported. Lower leg issues, lower leg injuries are all the rave at the moment in Super League. And we were talking last night about third man in, the tackle. Love your take on this. What we're seeing, and you'll be seeing the same thing, is a man is being held up in the tackle. Momentum is all but lost, or pretty much lost. And we're seeing real ferocious tackles coming in by a third man around the legs. Now, that can weaken limbs. And, a lot of these, you hear it, it looks so bad and there was no one around him, he went down, it's an ACL. But, I'm not a physiotherapist. I wouldn't claim to be, but the body can be weakened, can't it? It's like you get a good hit in the ribs, it weakens the ribs. The next one break it. It's that thing. We said that tackle needs looking at from a player safety perspective. A player's got a choice there. If the player's held in the tackle and they want to win the ruck and get him down on the ground, they can just go a little, no real force, just round the legs and help to bring him down. But what we're seeing is real, proper sprinting in with the shoulder, round the lower legs. That's got to stop, surely.
Yeah, well, I think there's already rules in place to stop that. Attacking the legs below the knee is not, or in and around the knee is not a dumb thing. So there's already rules in place to do that. But what we've got to understand is that there's all these rules that are put in place now for the rucks to be sped up. So what you've got to do as a defender, you've got to try and affect the tackler as quickly as possible. And actually having the time to go into if you are that third man defender, actually having that time now to pick a place to go in and be really selective about how and where when you do it. That time's been cut down even more this year because teams are being pinged penalties and 60-agains for a slightly slower tackle time. So we're talking about speeding the game up, but we're also talking about we've got to affect the tackle as well. So a player's decision making has got to really, really quick, and he's got to affect the tackle a lot quicker. So if you try and speed things up, there's always going to be, I think, early on, an element of a slight higher danger. And I think that's maybe what we're seeing. I'm not a massive fan. I'm old school. When I played, I wore metal studs in every game that I played. But with these boots that we've got now, you've got blades, you've got different shapes, studs or blades or whatever it is on the feet. And anything that's a straight line, a square, a rectangle, whatever it might be, it doesn't turn in the ground. A round stud will turn in the ground easily, but with all these new, it's almost like a fashion parade now with boots that people are wearing. You know what I mean? So for me as well, I think the footwear needs looking at. It needs to get away from the fashion of blades and this, that, and whatever else, and get back to studs, because something as simple as a circular stud will turn easier in the ground, and that might have an element of protection for the players as well. But yeah, I think early on, like I said, we're trying to speed the game up, and there's always going to be an element of a little bit of a higher danger as players get used to that as well.
Couple of points there then. So first and foremost, just going back to the actual collision, I get your point in terms of the speed of decision making. So in order to reduce, because again, you say that these rules are in place. I have seen over the course of the first 4 rounds of Super League and in the Championship as well, in that case, tackles are in and around the knee that should have been penalised and haven't been. That's the first point. And secondly, in order to reduce this, should the referees be calling held quicker in a stand-up tackle when momentum has stopped?
Potentially, yeah, potentially. But I think what you've got to do with that is you've got to understand there's always ways how people will manipulate the rules. So if they start calling held as soon as the tackle is stopped, players will start going into a ruck and stop moving straight away. So the referee calls held, which means the defenders have got to release so they can get an advantage by playing the ball quicker. The defence isn't set. So it's balancing the element of people trying to twist and bend the rules to their advantage, but also understand that we are still playing a high impact collision sport. You've got to try and make it as safe as you possibly can. But when you've got 110, 120 kilo blokes that are running at 100 mile an hour into each other, there's going to be an impact. There's going to be an element of impact and injury in there. I think obviously we want players to be safe, but you can't make a collision sport like rugby league 100% safe. And if there's poor technique where legs are being attacked, is it poor technique? Is it deliberate? Is it careless? Whatever it might be. Then if the injuries are as serious as they are, and they are a result of that, then the grading of them tackles probably needs to be a little bit higher, so players are spending longer out of the game.
So I think in bringing this to a close, as a coach, you're comfortable that the rules that are currently in place are good enough for this type of tackle? It now really is down to the referee to decide in the heat of battle what is deemed a reckless tackle and what is deemed a fair tackle. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, you can't make a high tackle, can you? You can't attack a player's head, but we still get high tackles during the game. So I know we've had the argument previously about reducing the tackle height and sanitising the game beyond belief, but we're a collision sport, an high-impact collision sport, and and people change directions at the last second, the last minute, as players have set themselves defensive. I know we're talking about a different collision there in terms of the third man chopping there, but you're going to have them elements of the game that you sometimes can't control and you can't take out. But also, there's that difference between Super League and Championship as well, where every tackle and every ruck within the Super League is monitored and reviewed straight away. In Championship, it's not. So there's players that are getting these impacts in Championships that if it's not penalised or it's not put on report, then that won't even be looked at. So the safe, just because of the time afforded to the RFL and the referees within the review period of their game during the week, they can't look at every tackle in the Championship. Does that mean that the Championship isn't as important as Super League? I don't know. That's probably another conversation for another day.
Yeah, it is. It's another debate, isn't it? But big congratulations to him. Obviously disappointing for them that they've lost the coach, but at least they had something to smile about up there in Cumbria. Let's get to your game, and what a game as well. Real grindy game. One for the purists. This 20. Doesn't sound it 24-16. There's some nice tries in the game, to be fair. But if you watched your game at the weekend, it's fair to say this was a proper tug of war, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess I feel sorry for some people that came and watched it, and certainly for myself as a coach. And I know listening to Kyle Trout as well. I think the main word from both coaches is frustration. There were periods that game, certainly for me, where we just gave Hunslet too many cheap outs, tackle 2, tackle 3 penalties in their 20-metre area. Never really built any sort of field position or pressure long term. But for us, I think we conceded a penalty on tackle 3 within their 20, and then we had to do 28 continuous tackles on our own goal line. Luckily for us, we didn't concede in that period. And then 90 seconds later, we go down to the other end of the field and we score. And it's pleasing as a coach that we've got that resilience to defend our goal line like that, and then go down into the field and score a try. But it's frustrating that we're putting ourselves in that position that we're defending our own goal line for 5 sets on the bounce, and we don't need to be doing that. So we need to get a bit smarter in certain areas and try and build a bit more pressure, a bit more field position, and I've no doubt then we might get a slightly easier game than we're getting at the minute. But as I said to you previously before we came on, that it's nice as a coach that I think all 3 games in the league that we've won so far, they have been a grind, they have been a attritional battle to a certain degree, and when you've got a team who can win games like that, that's great, is that, because then you've got the ability to do it. If we'd have won all our 3 games by 40 points, then you don't see that side to your team. So it'd be nice now to win 2 or 3 games with a little bit more of a relaxed performance, I guess, from a coach's point of view. But just nice to be 3 out of 3 for us.
Absolutely, and you mentioned your defence. There's been quite a few games already this season where you've had that repeat set on your own goal line, and the boys have really stood up well for you. Of course, Mackenzie Turner getting a brace, his first 2 for the season for Hunslet. You went behind twice in this game again, which shows great character, doesn't it? To bring yourselves back on 2 occasions.
Yeah, it does. And I thought Hunslet started the game really well. We kicked off to Hunslet, conceded a penalty on tackle 1, and then the next 3 sets we get the ball 2 metres off our own goal line. So Hunslet really put us under pressure at the start there. But yeah, we've shown the resilience, we've shown the determination and the ability to come back from being a score down and actually see a game out. So it's very, very pleasing as a coach that we can do that. But even the players last night at training, they were talking, and the message that they're giving is it is great that we can do that. But how long can we keep doing it before it bites in the backside? So we need to start learning the lessons very, very quickly.
100%. And Kieran Gill going over again. You had a bit of joy down that right edge, didn't you? Your right edge of attack there, their left edge of defence, and Kieran getting his 4th for the season. Yeah,
and his 150th career try as well, which I think it's been playing on his mind a little bit. He mentioned it a couple of weeks back that he was on 148, and he said he'd been thinking about it and trying to get it out of his mind and just play his natural game. But unfortunately for Kieran, he came off later on in the game, so with a bit of a groin strain, so he might be out for a week or 2 now. So hopefully it's not too serious, but try and get back out on the field as soon as we can.
Absolutely, because let's be fair, he's been one of your very strong standout players early doors this season. Wish him well from myself. Let's change track to the other Cumbrian side. Keighley 16, Workington 16, a draw in the great game of rugby league. Happy days.
Yeah, you don't see too many of them nowadays, do you? Yeah, I think listening to the coach interviews afterwards, I think it was one of them that both coaches agreed maybe it were a fair result. Don't really get that too often in this game, do you? You normally think you're unlucky or you should have got through and won the game, but a draw, a fair result against, I guess, two closely matched teams will be the happier team. Will Workington be the happier team going away at Keith and getting a point, or will Keith be happy being unbeaten at home in that game? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought probably Workington, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, I think if you can, for me as a coach, if you can go to an away ground against one of your rivals and come away unbeaten, whether it's a win or a draw, then you're always going to be happy, aren't you? I think your own form's always important, but likewise, for Keith, they've not been beaten at home on that day, so a point's better than none.
A point is better than none, and again, good to see the Cumbrian teams getting on the board and getting some points. Really, really pleased for them both this weekend. Let's go change track to Batley. Batley not had a great start to 2026. They'll be feeling a lot better. Obviously played Swinton. We talked last week in detail around Swinton, but Batley 54, Swinton 6. Good performance this one from the Bulldogs. They'll be happy to get off and running. Darrell Alfertz, remember Darrell from his Castleford days, and of course his Leeds day. Didn't work out for him at Leeds, did it? But a hat trick for Darrell. He'll be delighted with that, won't he?
He will, yeah. And I'm obviously Batley hold a special place in my heart for me, so I'm really pleased that Batley have managed to get on the board. And I've a couple of coffees a week with Paul Ice and the chief exec up at Batley as well, so I think he'll be happy with that. Not necessarily happy at paying winning money, because that's the only thing he complains about when they're winning 2 or 3 games on the bounce, paying winning money out at the end of the month. But no, really pleased for Batley that they've got the victory, and hopefully that can kickstart their season now. And obviously Luke Cooper's last game as a player, retiring after the weekend to look after his wife, who's unfortunately been diagnosed with breast cancer. So he's set his priorities that he needs to be at home now, looking after his kids and his wife. And wish Luke and his family all the best with that.
Here, mate. Here, absolutely. But yeah, well done to Batley. Great to see them off and running. A couple of blowouts. London Broncos, another ton for them, 106-18 against North Wales Crusaders. The good news for North Wales is, of course, Mr. Luluai's going there. That's been announced this week. I mean, a great player. He's done his apprenticeship around the clubs in terms of coaching, etc. That'll bring a lot of experience into the backroom staff, won't it, at North Wales?
Yeah, you think so. It's an interesting one. Long term, you'd expect that to be a positive one, but certainly shorter term, they need to be looking at performance on the field, don't they? After the London game, we know how strong London are, but if you're losing the game by over 100 points or you concede 100 points during that game, then defensively there's a lot of issues there, so they need to first and foremost make sure that they come up with a good performance this week and have a bounce back performance. But we said at the start of the campaign, London are looking really, really strong, aren't they? And definitely the team to beat this season.
I mean, 58-6 at half time. Not great. And you say that about defence. I would also say, potentially attitude as well. When you're in the grind and the scoreboard's ticking over at a rate of knots like it was there at the weekend, mentally you've got to be strong and you've got to stay switched on. It's that pride element, isn't it, for the shirt? You've got to keep turning up for each other.
No, definitely, yeah. And look, we've all been involved in games either as a player or a coach where you've had that result where it's been blown out, and you need to when you're in that moment, in that period, you need to reset, and you need to reset small goals. So it might be as simple as going on a 2-set block. We'll complete the next set with the ball, and then we'll complete the next set in defence, and we'll not concede a try. And then once you've completed that 2-set block, you go into the next 2-set block, rather than just the player. For me, the play or the set at the time, but it's got to be really, really small and manageable when you're getting into them games. And as a coach and as a player, I've always said you learn more about the individuals that you've got when things don't go well rather than when things are going well. And I'm sure that the coaching staff and the playing group will have seen traits and personalities there during that game that that they can maybe get a little bit better in certain areas, and things maybe seeing things that they didn't particularly like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive win. I mean, whenever you see a 3-figure score like London have put on, are we now starting to see London hit the straps?
Potentially. You know, I think London still had a few players out as well, didn't they? In that team, you know, Jimmy Meadows, I think he got the club record 42 points in a single game with a couple of tries and 17 goals, however many it was. You know, so real pleased for Jimmy as well. But you know, they're only going to get stronger, London, as the season progresses. So I think we play them twice in the space of 4 or 5 weeks. I think in a couple of months' time. So you know, hopefully we're still on form at that point, and London aren't.
Well, he's got a 26-point cushion as Jimmy in terms of championship point scoring this year. He's on 74. The closest to him is Matty Beverell. He's on 48. So yeah, he's had a result there as Jimmy. He's got a bit of a cushion to say the least. We spoke last week about Oldham. Oldham, of course, off field, Mike Ford all those weeks ago, and the results have been a little bit. Well, I would say miss, quite frankly, when you look at the roster that they've got. But they got back on the horse against a Midland Hurricanes team that, let's be fair, they brought in Aidan McGowan this week. Of course, people remember him for his Huddersfield days more so than not, I would say. But to win 40 points to 20 at Avery Fields, a place that has been very kind to Midland, that is a nice settler, isn't it, for Oldham? That's a strong win at a time when they needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a dominant. Certainly on the scoreboard, a dominant performance from Oldham, and it is one that will give them a lot of confidence going forward. And as you mentioned there, Midland's unbeaten at home there, and been playing some really, really good rugby of late, and been strong themselves. You know, so I had that one down as a little bit of a closer game than it actually was, and you know, so take me hats off to Oldham there in getting a convincing win. It's certainly something that will give them a lot of confidence moving into this week and beyond.
Nice to see Matty Ashurst on the score sheet twice. I've been a great admirer of Matty over his career. And like I say, in that Oldham team, there's a lot of experience, and Matty's one of those. They really need to kick on now, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I think Matty Ashurst, as you say, has been a great player for a number of years, and he's a massive threat on that left edge for Oldham. He's really smart with his lines of runs. He has that late movement. He bounces out quite a lot, but he can also run that hard inside shoulder line as well. So that experience and know-how that he's got on that edge is certainly a massive threat for them. And 2 tries for him, probably just rewards for him with the performance that he put in.
The Battle of the Vikings, we spoke about that last week, and it was advantage Widnes, 54-24. You know, they probably said, Gould, you're new to the yard. The dogs, the big dogs that are Widnes, where it's our backyard. I have to say, you know, again, half-time, 34 points to 6. Real, right out the traps, really quick Widnes in this game, and pretty much got the job done before half-time. Alan Coleman will be delighted because, let's be fair, Gould have been picking up some good wins. They've been very, very competitive, 54-24, but more importantly, 34-6 at half-time. You know, yes, Gould got on the score sheet a bit more in the second half, but that tends to happen. Yeah. That's a very impressive first half, isn't it?
It is, yeah. As a coach and as a team, that's pretty much a perfect half, is that, you know, going in at half-time, the game is pretty much done and dusted. And as you say, they maybe switched off a little bit in the second half. You know, don't want to take any credit away from Gould there, but as you say, a team, when you're nearly 30 points up at half time, it's very, very hard to maintain that intensity for the next 40 minutes as well. But just to get the job done as convincingly as they did, and I think, you know, Widnes showing that they're one of the form teams, and they've still got a lot of players that are not playing in the team as well. You know, people like Ryan Ince and Jack Owens, Joey Lyons, Liam Bent. You know, four players who have been standout for them for a few years now that aren't even in their team at this moment in time, either through selection decisions or injuries. You know, so they've got some quality players to come back in, and they're showing that they've got a great squad depth, and they're strong, and they're putting performances in, and they're shooting right towards the top of the table.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, good win that. Really, really good winner. When I saw the halftime score come through, I was like, wow, because I was genuinely expecting that to be a bit closer. But, you know, sometimes you just got to say, wow, well done to Widnes. Incredible first half. And another half-time score, 44-0. Doncaster pretty much getting the job done very early on against South. They ended up winning 78-8. We all know that it's going to be a difficult season for Salford as they, of course, established the new club and the infrastructure and the playing group. But a good win. I mean, look, Doncaster can only play what's in front of them. And, you know, at the end of the season, you know, points, you know, in terms of points for and against, they matter. So to get a plus 70 on the board, that will be very, very pleasing.
Yeah, it's huge. And we've mentioned about Salford previously, haven't we, that, you know, I don't want to talk them down, but coming from where they are at the start of the season, if they could get 4 or 5 wins during the campaign, and they'd probably see that as a bit of a success based on where they were 3 months ago, you know. So we know that they're going to get a victory every now and again, but we also know they're going to get a blowout score against them as well. So it's taking the rough with the smooth as a Salford fan at this moment in time. But yeah, Doncaster, again, another team we've talked about with a great squad depth, and looking at the players who aren't playing with them, they've got the squad depth to have Miski and Fremo on loan at Hunslet at the minute, and a few other people that didn't play as well. I think Titus Guazi didn't play. I'm not sure if Gabriel Springer played as well in that previous game. So again, a lot of squad depth that Doncaster have got, still waiting to come back into that squad.
Before we move on to the next round in the Championship, just in case you didn't watch Weekly last night, I know you train. I'm only pulling your leg. But yeah, we spoke last night about the draw of Super League, Bradford Toulouse. We talk about growing the sport, more eyes on the sport, the power of Super League. So Bradford Bulls Toulouse Championship last year drew in 4,792, which, let's be fair, as a Championship attendance is a good attendance. For the Super League game between the two this year, it increased by 83% to 8,777. So on that basis, if we want the game to grow, in order for it to grow, we need more money through the turnstiles. We need more eyes on the sport. We need fear of missing out. And let's not forget, this is Bradford. They've got over 10,000 against Catalan, now nearly 9,000 against Toulouse. They've still got visiting fans to go in there. Yeah. That's the element. So 10,000 now, from now until the end of the season. The two big almost problem games for Bradford, the French teams, they've been and gone. Incredible attendances that would rival some of the big guns, has to be said. Now they're probably looking at 10,000 plus going forward for the rest of the season. Right decision to promote them. In that case,
yeah. Well, look, we all know we're going back, 30 years. We know the beast that Bradford were in Super League in the early stages. They were getting 16,000, 17,000 people or whatever it was, week in, week out, and the old Bullmania days. We know the draw that they had, but that's a long time ago. In terms of Bradford as a sleeping giant, they are a sleeping giant, and hopefully having a team like Bradford back in Super League can grow the eyes on the sport. And I think what they've done with the two home games that they've had so far against Catalan and Toulouse, I think they've given out a lot of complimentary tickets and promoted the game, just knowing that they weren't going to get any visiting fans there. But we all know within rugby league that just giving somebody a complimentary ticket doesn't mean that somebody's going to come to the game. You've got to get them there. So the fact that they've got nearly 20,000 people there over the last two games, which you'd highlight probably as it's going to be a very, very low attendance, for them to get nearly 20,000 people through the gate in them two games, regardless of how many people have actually physically paid through the gate or they've got a complimentary ticket. As soon as they're there, they're going to spend money, and as soon as they're there, they're going to enjoy it, and they're more likely to come back. So take me out off to Brad for what they've done in getting them people through the gate, and hopefully now that they've got that buzz there with the people that have come through, and there'll be a lot of young kids that weren't around when Bradford were the beast that they were years ago, and hopefully they've got the bug now, and it's a new generation of fans that they can get through the gate and develop and again go from strength to strength and maintain the position within Super League.
Couldn't agree with you more, mate. And this, we announced it last night. This might even take you a little bit by surprise yourself, but of course we do Team of the Week, we do Team of the Month. We announced them last night on the show, and two Bradford players in Team of the Month. One of them has been in every Team of the Week. We celebrate the player in their individual position. It doesn't matter what shirt they're wearing, even if they're on the losing side. If a player has been exemplary in their position against the opposition, ultimately it wasn't their fault. They turned up. They had a wow of a game in defeat. They're in our Team of the Week.
Can I guess who that was? Obviously, I didn't see it last night. Joe Mellor.
Well, Joe Mellor's one of them.
Right.
So Joe Mellor got 13 in our Team of the Month. But there's a lot of competition in loose forward. Joe Shorrocks has been incredible form as well. He was very close. He's been in a lot of Team of the Weeks as Joe Shorrocks. But the player who won our Player of the Month for February was Wonga Blake.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been in all three Team of the Weeks thus far this season in centre for Bradford. Now, when the expansion of Super League was being talked about, there was this call about player pool, and I get that. But the fact that a Championship player 2025, and I take pride in the fact, like I say, don't matter who you are, don't matter who you play for, if your performances are of the right and required standard, I will give you your plaudits. The fact that Wonga Blake has got our Player of the Month speaks volumes for what can be achieved in terms of transitioning from a Championship player into a Super League player.
Yeah, it does. I know he had last season Championship. He's come from the NRL. He had the seat,
Yep.
the time in Super League with St Helens as well. Probably disappointed there for St Helens fans, I would imagine. But he was a Championship player. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of players that have come up as well, not only with Bradford but with York and Toulouse. Have got pretty much the same squad as he had in the Championship, and they're showing that they can compete there. I think the challenge that we know for these three teams that have got promoted is doing it consistently over a long Super League season, and digging into the depths of their squad when they are starting to pick up injuries. And some of them, I know Bradford have talked already about potentially having to go out in the market to get some more people in with some of the injuries that they've got, and that's going to be the sticky part of the season when it does start to bite and it does start to dig in when you're having to perform week in, week out at the top end of Super League, and sometimes doing it with squad numbers that might be 24, 25, 26, and that's when sometimes you are going to get exposed. But as we said, similar to Salford, we know we're going to get games this year in Super League where them three teams, the promoted teams, are going to win. There might be some games where they get a 50, 60 or 70 point hammering, depending on who they're playing on that particular day. We've got to expect that. But the way that all three of the promoted teams have started the season has been a credit to the Championship.
Well, I'm looking forward to going and see my old mate Mark Applegarth at the weekend. I'm going up to York. Looking forward to seeing Mark, champion fella. Really pleased for him and your Knights. And speaking of a Championship player as well, David Nofaluma, Halifax player. All what was going on with Halifax was released to York. I don't know if you saw it. What an incredible debut he had for York at the MKM. We had him on the show last night. Delighted for David as well. Another great player that's now stepped up into Super League.
Yeah, he's a great player. Now we saw how good he was last year when Sheffield played Halifax at Hunslet when Halifax were away from the Shea, and he just ripped us apart in that game. He's got unbelievable quality. Regardless of he's playing at fullback, at wing, or any of the outside back positions, he's just an unbelievable player. He's got that quality, and really pleased he's got that opportunity now to showcase that within Super League.
Spare a thought for Josh Fewlis. He's going to have his hands full. Happy days. Well, let's get back to the fixtures for the Championship this weekend. Of course, officially, what are we on now? Is it officially round 6, this one?
Officially round 6, yeah.
Officially round 6. Of course, the table's a bit of a mess. Of course, London and Widnes are currently sitting on 8 points each. Widnes have played a game more. Of course, they played 5, but they're sitting top, which is fantastic for Widnes. Barrow Raiders, Doncaster, Sheffield Eagles, close to that top 4. But you said that you wouldn't be that worried about it as long as you got your 2 points.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this week. But yeah, Sheffield 5th. Dewsbury Rams also on 6 points, as are Midland Hurricanes and your opponents this week, Rochdale. Let's go there first. Then you, of course, going against Rochdale. They'll be a bit bruised by what happened in Cumbria. So, from your perspective as an away coach, what is more concerning? Playing a team that had a blowout the week before, as in almost like a training session, or a team that have lost a game that they will believe they shouldn't have done and are wounded? What is a worse opponent to face as a coach?
They're both equally as bad, mate, and you can flip that narrative your way as a coach and the message that you give the players. I think my message for us this week is that we know that Rochdale have got the quality because they won the first 3 games of the season, and the last 2 games have not played anywhere near they did in them first 3 games. So we will prepare as we always do for the best team that Rochdale are going to send, and we'll expect the team that played in the first 3 games. Hopefully, we get the team that played in the last 2 games because they've not been great. But that's got to come down with our performance and our attitude as well. And like I said earlier, I think our issue at the moment is us and making sure that we get our DNA right and how we want to play the game right. And that's the message that we'll be giving to players this week is let's prepare for the best team that Rochdale have got, but let's make sure that we concentrate solely on what we need to focus on.
It's got the potential to be a really good game, this one, hasn't it? I think, as you say, taking last week's defeat to one side for Rochdale, this has got all the makings of a really good tussle, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, it has. And like I say, I'm always wary, regardless of whether it's a team that's, as you say, has had a bit of a hammer in a team that's not scored any points and maybe lost a couple of games, or even a team that's maybe won by 30 or 40 points the previous week. You've got to be on your guard, regardless of who you're playing, and expect the best version of that team. But I said the main thing for us this week is we concentrate on what we need to do well and execute that plan.
Tough one to call. Of course, you'll back your own team. I won't ask you. Dewsbury Rams, Barrow Raiders. This is another one. Both 4-3 for the season thus far. This is, again, 2 o'clock. The only 2 o'clock kickoff this Sunday. Again, this is a very tough one to call. Could it come down to simply home field advantage? Are the margins so tight, do you think, between these two sides?
Yeah, potentially. It's an interesting one because, we know that Barrow like to play rugby. They like to play a bit of an expansive game, and on the field that Dewsbury have got, which it's a lot narrower than a lot of other fields, it might restrict the way that Barrow want to play, and they might have to go a little bit more direct. But we know that they've got some great middles as well, so it's going to be an interesting one, is this? And I would imagine that the longer the game goes on, where it's either tight or there's a score in it either way, the more confident Dewsbury will feel on it. I can't really call this one at this moment.
It's like yours. It's and it's great. It's absolutely great. Jeopardy Rugby League. This is what you want before a ball is even kicked. You want to feel as if this is one to watch, and they are both those first 2 games that we've just talked about there. Absolute must watches. Doncaster, great win. Absolutely great win last week. Going up against Goole. Goole again will be bruised, but Doncaster will go in wanting to build on what was a very comprehensive win. But let's be fair, Goole are going to be a much stronger opposition for him this week.
Yeah, they are, and Goole will be looking to bounce back from their performance and result at Widnes, and we've seen already this season that they can do that. They've picked up several wins this year already, and they've shown the quality that they've got within their team. And I'm looking forward to this one as well. I think this will be a real interesting game. Can Doncaster maintain the form that they've shown so far and get another comprehensive victory, or can Goole bounce back? It's you look at the fixtures every week in the Championship, and there's interesting ones all the way across the board.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Speaking of interesting, Halifax at the moment it goes on. I've heard nothing to the contrary. They've been granted license to start back up. To your knowledge, is this a goer this weekend?
I've seen as much as everybody else. I've got no behind the scenes information or rumour mill coming through Rugby League. The only thing that I've seen is what everybody else has seen on social media, that they're prepping to play the game. I guess Halifax will have to get some players, and I think they've only got 14 players that remain that didn't sign at any other club. So they're going to have to get on the phone and get some players in short term, either from Super League or from the Championship rivals to team in the field.
I was in Paul Rowley's press conference yesterday, and he said that he wouldn't be adverse to loaning a few players to Halifax this week. So we'll keep our eyes there. But that said, what a game to come back to, London. So it's going to be
welcome back,
Halifax. And look, it would be an amazing story if Halifax beat London, but I think we'd all expect London to win. But the main thing is Halifax get back played, and hopefully we will remain that way until the end of the season. North Wales, of course, off the back of the weekend, a devastating loss for them, going up against Batley, who of course won. So again, an interesting game. It is, isn't it? With that win that Batley got, it'll give him confidence. Only 2 points separate these two already in the Championship. Again, it's why not go and watch this one? It should be a belter.
Yeah, I guess as you mentioned earlier on, it's one of them, isn't it? It's the message and the narrative that you need to give your players. As a coach for North Wales, then the message is quite clear that we need to be so much better than we were the previous week, and you're expecting a response. And if you're James Ford over at Batley, you're saying, look, we've got a good victory, but we've only got one victory this season. Let's not think that we're going to win every game like that. Can we back it up now? So you're putting the pressure on your players to back that performance up with another victory, and they'll want to be looking to kickstart their season. So it's again another game that's got the potential to be a close one.
Newcastle have been smarting after their defeat a few weeks. Of course, had a bye last week, going up against Swinton. So Newcastle will be hoping that they can charge back with a win.
Yeah, they will. But again, looking at it from Swinton's point of view, they'll be looking at a team that's lost the last couple of games.
Correct.
It's difficult sometimes to prep against a team like Newcastle, not knowing what players that they're going to get from York. I know they've recruited a few from Halifax. Obviously, did York, Newcastle. So there might be Tom Inman available for Newcastle to strengthen them. But you would suggest that Newcastle will probably be a little bit too strong.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the player pool at York, you would have hoped that Newcastle have had early notice this week in terms of the player pool that they've got, and because of that, maybe they'll be well prepped for this one. And of course, Swinton, Well, they're doing it tough, aren't they? At least they're at home. At least they're at home. Whitehaven, having got themselves a win, now go up against Midland, who got themselves a loss against Oldham. Oldham week off this week, isn't it? Oldham have a bye this week. Would you expect Midland to come back in this one and get back in the winning circle?
Potentially, yeah. And I guess a little bit will depend on how Whitehaven respond to the news with Anthony Miller leaving. I think James Newton's taken over on an interim basis, so it's a bit of a baptism of fire for him in his first game in charge against a strong Midlands team. So I think a lot will depend on how they've been impacted and affected by the departure of Anthony Miller this week. So I guess that's a difficult one to call about what their mindset is and how they're thinking and feeling about that game.
Yeah, come on, Whitehaven fans, get yourselves down there. Go and support your team. They're going to need you to support this week, obviously, behind the scenes in the dressing room. That will have had an effect, of course it will. But hopefully it galvanises them, and hopefully they put on a good display against Midland. Hunslet, the team, of course, that you beat at the weekend, go to Widnes. This is, again, for me, a really good-looking game. I mean, Widnes will want to kick on and keep their momentum going forward, but as you saw, Hunslet on another day, Hunslet could have took you. There was moments in that game where Hunslet could have caused you more problems. They caused you enough as it was, but in terms of the score sheet and ticking the scoreboard over, this has got again. we know that Widnes fans turn out in numbers. This should be a real solid game of rugby league. Yeah,
definitely, very very strong Hunslet. The players that they've got. Lee Gaskell showed all his class that he's had, and if they've still got the players that they've got on loan from Doncaster as well, that certainly strengthened them. They've got the potential to go to Widnes and cause what potentially is an upset. Widnes, Widnes are at home, aren't they? Yeah. Widnes being the home team, you'd expect them to be slight favourites in that, but I've seen firsthand how good Hunslet can be. They're missing a couple of middles. They've lost Keelan Foster for the next 4 months, and I think Ethan O'Hanlon's picked up a 2-game ban as well. So they've lost a little bit of their strength within that middle unit, which might be a little bit of a distraction for Hunslet. But I think they're looking at trying to bring some people in short-term loan to cover that. So yeah, and all marks again of another really interesting game.
Yeah, really looking forward to that one. Really looking forward to that one. And then finally, of course, the final game of round number 6. It will be Workington, won't it? Workington, they're going up against Salford. Workington, getting a draw last week, and who used to say they can't get onto 3 points? Salford, of course, currently above them in the table. But because of where they sit on the table, this again could be a close game.
Yeah, definitely. You say Workington will be confident coming into this week, having getting their first point of the season, and Salford will be highlighting this game as another potential game that they can win. So it's another tricky one. I probably tip Workington as slight favourites, but not massively so. So I guess it's one of them games of the team that turns up best prepared for the game with the best attitude and applies themselves the best is probably going to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. You know what? Championship Rugby League. Get yourself to these games, especially, if your team are, the French side of things. Where are the French teams this week in terms of Toulouse and Catalan? Let me just have a quick look. I'm just trying to look now in terms of where they are this week. Let's have a quick look while I'm live. Toulouse, yeah. So Wigan are away. Wigan are away in Toulouse, and Catalan are at Leeds. So yeah, Wigan fans, yeah, Swinton, why not Swinton? Get yourself down there, Widnes. Go and go and watch a game of rugby league. I know your team's away. Your team's away. Get around the rugby league family. Go on. Do you know what I love about doing this? What I'm doing now is when I go to a neutral game. I went to Huddersfield Wakey the other week. Absolutely loved it. It's brilliant. Nothing in it for me. I can just sit back, watch rugby league, and watch it for what it is. And it's something nice about that. Going to a game where you've got no skin in it, and you can just sit back, watch it, and enjoy the craft of the players. I think it's a wonderful thing to go and do. So yeah. Come on, get off your backsides. Go and watch these games.
It's interesting as well that when you go to a game as a neutral, the refereeing is so much better.
The pie tastes better. The beer doesn't spill. Good stuff. Love it, mate. Absolutely love it. That's the bit that goes rival, won't it? The referee's better. The beer doesn't spill and the pie tastes better. Brilliant. Doncaster Ghoul. Let's get into some milestones before we go. So Watson Boas needs 1 appearance to reach 100 for Donny. And Alex Sutcliffe needs also 1 appearance, and that will be his 100th in his career. So that's good news down there. Moving to Halifax, London. Saliva Haveli, I hope I've said that right, needs 1 appearance to reach 200 in his career. Will Lavelle needs 1 appearance for 200 for London Broncos. So we wish them well if they hit their milestones. Over to North Wales and Batley. Pat Moran needs 1 appearance for 150 in his career. So good luck to Pat with that, and hopefully he gets that. Is that everything? Oh, no, hang on. We've got some more. Widnes Vikings against Hunslet. Tom Gilmore. 2 more points. Will get his 1,000th point for his career. Nice milestone, that one. And Dan Abram needs 4 goals to reach 500 in his career. So that's a really good accolade if you can get that one. And finally, Workington Salford, Jack Bradley. 1 more appearance for him. He's going to have 100 in his career. Of course, he's represented both Workington and Whitehaven in his career thus far. So we do like to celebrate the milestones here on Championship Rugby League with Craig. So to all of those players and to your families, if you achieve those milestones, make sure you celebrate them, and many, many congratulations, and thank you for your service to the great game of rugby league. Craig, as always, what an incredible show that's been. We've taught loads of good stuff there, referees, tackle technique. Oh, we've been all over the place, mate. It's been a fantastic episode. As always, we wish you well at the weekend. Will you be top 4? Well, you've got the possibility of being there, but great to see you in the winning circle again, mate. Have a great week, and we'll look forward to spending more time with you this time next week. All the best, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Pleasure. All the best.